Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Hey, welcome back, everyone. She is somebody that helps people craft their communication, present better, tell better stories. Everything is a story. That's my belief. Think about it. Everything, there's a story that lies in everything. She's a coach that helps you along with that. She's also a screenwriter. Today, we're going to focus on the things you wouldn't think that need an extra set of eyes in terms of communication. A lot of things that we do that we wonder, does this sound right? Does this look right? Another service that she provides as I'm going to call her a communication coach. I don't know if that's okay, but that's what I get. She's a storytelling coach as well. And she's back with us. Michelle Cutler joins us here on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm really well, thanks.
Yeah, welcome back. It's we've talked about telling the right story, how to do it, brainstorming, all of that. But let's say you've done it and you need to present something and you want to make sure that it's done right, it sounds right, it's got the right flow to it. What are some of the things that you help support people with?
Sure. I mean, one thing we've been talking about a lot is that before you can write anything, you have to have a story. You have to know what you're going to write about. You have to know why. And there's a whole process of sort of discovery that comes with that. We were talking about brainstorming. Sometimes it's answering a prompt. So, there's that sort of backpedaling into the draft, right, before you can even get to a polishing point. And then I had also said a number of times that until you are ready to present, leave grammar, leave punctuation, leave all of those things that may trip you up. That's the presentation stage, right? That's when your ideas are on the page, you're happy with the flow and the structure, you're happy with, the takeaway, the question asked and hopefully resolved, or maybe left open as an open-ended question. But ultimately, when you're sending something in to be considered for anything, the writing has to stand up on its own on the page. It's not there with you to explain it. It's not there with you to wear your best dress or your best outfit. So really, it's just the words on the page are doing all the work for you. And so I have this service that I came up with the idea. It's called Last Look. And it's based on when you work in the film industry or even theater, but film industry more, because once someone says action, and let's say you're losing light and you're going to lose the location, and this take is the only take the entire crew will be available for, these actors, like everything is riding on this one take. And right before you shoot that one take, they will call out last looks. And the wardrobe department, the script supervisor, everybody will check their department to make sure everything's in the right place, the lighting is set, the cues are correct, the actors have what they need. Because once the director calls action and camera's rolling, there's no undoing what's done if you're going to lose your location and your light. So let's just say when you're going to press submit for an application, for anything, once you press submit, that's like saying action. It's like hands off. It's like in those food competitions, the cooking competitions, where the timer goes and everyone has to put their hands up and step away from the cutting board, right? You can't change the dish once you've cooked it and presented it to the judges, right? So I know there's this feeling, it's called stress, that makes you really just want to get that off your desktop. Just out, you just want that thing, you want that application in, you're so tired of thinking about it, you can't even look at it anymore, and you want to press submit. And that's really the moment when someone else should take a look. Someone else who's objective, someone else so it can't be like your mom or your, partner or your kid. It has to be someone who is just judging the words on the page in the same way an applications committee would be for a college program or a hiring situation. So that's where the last looks comes in. And I realized this week that it is very relevant for young people who are applying to college right now for next year. applications are due for early admission and coming up regular admission. And I didn't realize how stressful it was until I was contacted by someone whose daughter is ready to submit, but they're just not sure about that personal essay. And then I realized, oh, there is a need for it because the stress was so high. It's a teenager. So anyway, so that's what I was thinking we could talk about today is just this polishing, polishing the diamond, basically.
I love what you said in that when you're writing something initially, don't worry about punctuation, don't worry about all that stuff. Just get the thoughts out, organize them, and then go back to it. And I find a lot of times that when we're challenged as to what to write, while we're trying to come up with something, let me go back. Just let me fix the punctuation. Let the spelling's off on here. It's almost as if you're stalling because you can't come up with what you really know what you need to accomplish. But that I think it's a wonderful way to look at it. Just get it down there, get it down, and go back. You can, like a wood crafts person will go back over and over, sand it over again, sand polyurethane, stain, then polyurethane, all of that. What are some things to remember when you're getting close to the last look, where you're going to yell action, i.e. press the submit button? What are some important things?
Well, I mean, if you are comfortable to edit on your own, but I think some things it really does help to have a separate set of eyes looking at it. But what I am doing when I'm looking as a separate set of eyes, I'm first looking at what is the headline of the piece. So if we're talking about a college essay, meaning an application essay, the personal statement that goes in with all of your applications, what's it saying about you that the rest of your package is not saying? So the student that I'm working with, she has looks amazing on paper, 4.0, lots of clubs, and working a job, and all of these things that, ticking the boxes that you need to fill out this application. She's right at the top. But there are other kids who are also right at the top, right? So what's the essay? What is she saying in her essay that the rest of this material about her isn't saying? So it's really a beautiful story that she wrote, but within it, she included a list of these clubs that she's in. She included the things that are already listed in her box ticking for the application. And I was saying, you have 600 words. Every word is prime real estate. Every word is ammunition. Why take up real estate with information that's already listed in your application? Here's 100 words that you could show a side of yourself that the admissions committee won't see in the rest of the application, right? So first I'm looking at that. What is the statement, the essay sharing with someone who doesn't know you at all? And what is the point of telling this particular story? So what's called like the headline, what is the first statement? What's bringing us in? Because just like anything at this point, people, when they turn on a movie, will turn it off after a minute and a half, right? If it's not really taking them in. So imagine, the admissions panel is getting hundreds and hundreds of applications. You want them to be so engaged with what they're reading about you that they think about you for the rest of the day, that they think, I would love to meet that kid in person. Like, this kid sounds really interesting. I'd love to meet them in person. I love what they could bring to this community here, what we have at our school or in our program. So they're, cutting out anything that's not necessary or anything that's redundant is a very good place to start. Knowing why you're telling this particular story, what does it share about your character and your background? Okay, so these are all sort of the bigger picture, like from the bird's eye view, but on the ground at the sentence level, you're also looking at use of language. Are you able to are you using a metaphor in an effective way? Is that metaphor necessary, or are you just showing off? There are literary things that you can do, but they should really work for you, because the audience that's reading these things are well educated in an academic environment. So your grammar has to be correct. You can be creative and interesting with it, but it should always be correct. Using quotation marks, punctuation marks. We learn these things in school. I think when you're in high school, obviously you're still paying attention to grammar in that way, and punctuation. It's part of the curriculum. But I think it's very easy to also forget those things when you're wanting to be personal and creative. Like, how are you marrying the academic with the personal? And ultimately, that is what school is. When you have a really good experience at school, you're marrying the academic with your personality and vice versa. So you don't want to present yourself like a robot, like, I am good in all subjects. That's not what we're looking for, right? We want to see some dimension, some humor, some compassion, vulnerability, a journey, some kind of, even though you're young, you're still learning, you're learning life lessons. And so I think that this is the opportunity in 600 words, to make it count. You have kids, don't you, Steve?
I do, yeah.
And have you had to do the college application thing? Have you done the dance?
Done the dance. Yeah, with my son who just started college this year. For sure, and he's pretty good. I gotta say, in terms of expressing himself, and he's going to school for cybersecurity. So it's not like it's creative writing, although there's creative thinking involved in that. I really want to point out and push this point, what you said before, every word counts. I don't think we believe that or see that. And I've experienced it the other day doing radio commercials, 30-second commercial. I have to set it up, pain point, why this client is important and it's going to help you. Make sure that we get the website in there twice. Make sure we get the name of the company in there, twice would be great. Again, 30 seconds. That's all the time. Literally every word counts. Now, that's maybe an extreme case, but I think it holds true with everything. If you want to hold somebody's attention, you don't want to deal with fluff. And by the way, that's AI. When that comes, that AI doesn't do that. AI doesn't make every word count. AI adds a word every 3 words and fluffs it up to the point where it's just like, well, it's so heavy. It's like eating a heavy meal. You're just like, oh. So that's, and they say that even never should an author proofread their own work. They can't, because they're so close to it. So to your point, that's where you come in. You're that outside entity. Yeah. You're not family, friend connected. You're looking at it through a totally separate set of eyes.
Yeah. And I was thinking to that point, in my own experience, when I was ready to go to graduate school, I wanted to go to graduate school. And I wanted to go to the top schools, because at that point I had not taken my education journey all that seriously. I had started one college, went to another, took a few years off, went back. And I thought, now I'm actually ready for the commitment. And the applications were looming, and I was really stressed out. I mean, I was working, I was in school and trying to do the application. And of course, you have to get recommendations, and there's so many things. You're just spending so much time sort of peeling back the layers of who you are to hopefully expose what it is that you'll be following. Basically, that's who you will be following in your life. And I was panicking. I knew the story I wanted to tell. I wasn't hitting it the way I wanted to tell it. I probably did 50 drafts. And I still wasn't happy. And so I went to the writing center at our school at Hunter College, which I was trained there as a tutor. I was doing exactly the same thing for other students that I needed someone to do for me, but I didn't even realize that I couldn't do it for myself because I do it for other students. Why can't I do it for myself? So when I went in and I met with one of the tutors, all of the pieces came together in that one session. It's like, oh, it was right in front of me the whole time. I couldn't see as we've said before, I couldn't see the story through the trees. There was just too much tree. I didn't know where the story was. And this one person reading it and pointing a few things out just made it click. And so I realized that, in working with, because, usually I'm working with advertising, or I'm working with memoir writing or essays or applications to writers, workshops and programs or business proposals. These are all sort of like adult sort of level projects, right? And because I don't have kids, I just I didn't even think about that whole high school, getting ready for college, until I was contacted this week. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can really help this girl. We're having a call tomorrow just to partly, even as a confidence booster, like to have an outside person read your essay and be like, this is good. This is really good. I mean, the deadline is in 2 weeks. We're not going to take it apart and rebuild it, but because it's already good. But what can we do? These little tweaks, anytime there's a word that feels general, how can we make it a little more specific? How can we, in it, she says something about the books, her brother's favorite books. And I want to know, like, what books? Like sci-fi, comic books, history, all of these little details. When you say we have a family gathering, and it's creating anxiety, is it because it's a huge family? Is it because it's a tense family? Like anything that feels general or sort of assuming the reader knows your background is where I can come in and help you, because mom's not going to see it, right? Her mom is a very smart person. I know her well. And she absolutely could write the essay if she wanted to. But when it's your kid, it's hard to see what's not there, right? So I just felt like this was an important thing to present at this point, because I think there are a lot of people out there whose kids are facing this. And as parents, they may feel either ill-equipped or not have the time, not have the bandwidth, depending on their work and their schedules. And, it's just something I feel that can really help. It takes an hour and a half. Sure. It's something that's just, as you and I like to say, like laser. Like, let's just focus in 600 words. The rest of the application, forget about it for this hour and a half. Just forget about all of it. Forget about everything. Let's just look at the story on the page and the way you're presenting it. And that you feel that if you were asked to sit in what they call like the hot seat for an interview, that this is the greatest way to introduce yourself, is this 600-word essay, right? I had to sit in the hot seat when I did get into graduate school. I got into the 2 programs I applied to, and I was called in, and she said, for the interview, and she said, that's your seat right there. It's the hot seat. And I was like, woo, I'm going to make it hotter. I was like, I'm just going to sit down and make it hotter. But it got me in the room. And then it got me a scholarship. So every one of these pieces of the puzzle for these applications are really have a lot of importance for what can unfold in your life. And it's great to get them the way that you feel really represents you, not the way a counselor said, tell them this, and this. They love stuff like that. That may be true, but if that doesn't feel true to you, you might feel like a fraud. You might feel like you're not really able to talk about the things you're passionate about if they aren't really what got you there.
It's got to resonate with you and feel authentic at the same time, I would believe. What does it feel like when you write something and you've gotten to the point where we're at the last look. If I polished it up, we're all set here. Or you do it for somebody else, and you know that this is it. I got it. Yeah. We move things. We change some words. How does that feel to you?
Well, it's funny because it feels like symbiotic, where the words on the page and the story they're telling you can't tear them apart. Like, they are intricately connected, so that I, as the reader, again, 600 words may not seem like a lot, but I could really travel in time with you in 600 words. I mean,
sure.
As we're saying, like, each word has its service. Are you introducing a character? Are you introducing the place? Are you introducing conflict? Will that conflict be resolved? How will it be resolved? I mean, it's funny. I have a neighbor who's, he's Spanish, but he also teaches English to kids. And so a lot of times he asks me for, advice or help on certain things. And we were talking about the just question words, who, what, where, when, why. Like, we learned that in, second or third grade, the 5 W's. Let's not forget them. They're really useful. Like, a lot of those things we learn in the earliest days of learning how to read and write, how to think, right, critically, or how to share and yourself with language. All of those things we learned as kids hold true all the way through. We don't need to make it more complicated. So who are you when this story starts, and where will you end up? Where will we, as the reader, or if it's a film, the audience? I mean, it's the same thing. We're introduced to a character. They're in some sort of conflict. Who were they? Why is this a conflict? How do they get themselves out of it, right? So these are all, they're timeless questions. And so when I'm reading a piece, or I feel like we've worked on a piece, if it's mine or someone else's, it just has that click where you know the answers. Yep. You're left with no answers unless it's intentional to leave it as an open-ended question, which becomes something the reader feels perhaps more philosophical thinking about things, right? So yeah, it's definitely, sometimes when it's pointed out to you too. Like, sometimes if it's your own piece, you can't really tell yet if it's ready. You just can't tell. And to have the sort of vote of confidence by an outside reader like me that it's ready, then I think you can sleep that night. It just helps. It's a mental health. We're talking also like mental health issues when you're dealing with the stress of these types of deadlines. I'm not a teenager now, thank goodness, because I can't imagine, I can't imagine how to deal with it. And luckily there are a lot of people helping, and there's a lot more support now probably than when I was, a teenager. We just had the guidance counselor's office and you would go in and there was a big book there called like the US Book of Schools or something like that. And you would just flip through this huge book and like try and find some schools that you would apply to. Everything now is online. These applications are online. They have forms, blocks where you can only use 100 characters. Like as if you're writing a tweet or something.
Well,
100
there we
characters.
Go. Every word counts. And what I'm getting, and we're out of time. We're out of words. What I get here is when you've crafted it and it's ready. Final take. We're good. It's almost as if a team is on the page. The words are the team members, and they all have to play well together for the ultimate goal. Winning the game, whatever it might be. Best way to reach you is your website, michellecutler.com?
Yeah, it's www.michellecutler.com, where I have all my services listed. But I feel like in this moment, I've cleared some space from other things. So if there are people out there who really feel that they need this for their kid or for themselves, I'm really in the zone for that right now. And at the same time, if your applications are 3 months from now and you have the time and you want to start, with a strategy session to really approach this, to hopefully make the path to submission a more manageable, less stressful. I'm very open and willing to do that. I would love to help people sleep at night.
It's my belief that everything from the lowest level, a text to an email to everything that we're talking about, essentially requires a last look. That's it. It does. What you don't hit send, don't hit submit until you give it a last look. And especially for those more important things, you're there for that. And I'm glad you're here today, Michelle. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.